Tuesday edition of the Fenway Rundown podcast. Chris Cotillo back in the home studio, a new one, and Sean McAdam also here. Chris Smith has you covered on the road in Baltimore, where the Red Sox are in the midst of a four-game series. They won last night. Three more to go as we record this Tuesday afternoon and post it Tuesday afternoon. We're going to do something different for the second half of the pod this week. We are going to do our quarter century Red Sox teams. That'll go up on Thursday morning as I go away to the land of Bill Belichick for the weekend. And that's as much as we'll talk about that, unless, Sean, you want to take it from here.
I'm good, actually. Let's keep going.
Okay. So back to the Boston Red Sox. They won three of four over the weekend. We talked about that first game when we last spoke on this platform on Friday. Sunday night was not a great loss. They didn't look great. It is what it is. Three out of four. I was on the baseball hour with Tony Maz yesterday, and he asked me a question, and shockingly, it had a negative tone to it. And I actually agreed with it that that weekend, or the first three quarters of that weekend, was a little bit more about the Yankees playing horribly than the Red Sox playing well, and things were not good in the Bronx, especially on Saturday when the Boo Birds came out. In any case, the Red Sox get three out of four there. They would have taken that any which way it would have came if you had signed them up for it before. And, pitching performances from Bello and Crochet, the real story to me. Credit where credit's due, but still, the Yankees were a mess for the first three.
Yeah, I don't know that I would say that that was less about the Red Sox winning and more about the Yankees losing for all three games. Certainly, you know, the first game is a one-run game going into the ninth inning. The second two, though, as sloppy as the Yankees were on the field, as you noted, the Red Sox got very strong pitching performances from their number one and number two starters and would have won those games pretty handily, one way or the other, given how the Yankees lineup got dominated. What was a 5-1 game on Saturday in the ninth inning turned into a real rout because the Yankees had a horrendous ninth with throwing errors from Volpe and a balk from Blackburn and all kinds of missteps. But give the Red Sox credit for going in there and taking three against a team that had come alive a little bit offensively in Tampa and was flexing its muscles with the long ball. And the Red Sox limited them offensively with three good starts from the beginning. Giolito didn't go very deep, but kept them in the game. And then both Bello and Garrett Crochet were dominant. So the more we talk this out, I don't know how accurate that was. And I understand there are agendas at work here, but I would say three out of four against a team that you were trailing in the standings on the road is a good weekend by any definition.
Yeah, I mean, I again, the credit goes to the Red Sox. The Yankees were definitely complicit in those losses, and it was funny over time. And I don't have the obviously experience as some other people on the beat and kind of feeling out how these things are going to go. As we were sitting there on Sunday before the game, a few people who had covered the team for a long time said, "This is one of those that is just an absolute guaranteed, Red Sox loss on Sunday night. The Yankees are going to take out their frustrations." It's one of those that you've seen this so many times. It's one of those
That's
games
a
that,
reverse lock.
yeah. And in this case, it happened. May, obviously, not a very good outing with the three homers. Buehler in the bullpen gave up a homer as well. It's Yankee Stadium. It is what it is, but still a very good weekend. I think the big story for me, that's come out of that is obviously Crochet being Crochet and doing what he's done, but Bello stepping up as the number two. As a guy we've talked about, obviously, as we do a lot of these players on this pod, but a guy who has had an excellent, excellent stretch here and an excellent season. Giolito, obviously has been in that mix as well, but Bello's your number two guy come playoff time, I think.
Yeah, hard to argue with that at this point. I think Bello has really taken a big step forward. We talked about it last year, him being able to kind of get to 180 plus innings and 30 starts and all of those things show that he could hold up physically over the course of the season. That was one step forward. But this year, the step forward has been about performance. And this long stretch that you referenced, where he's got, we can go back better than 2 months and he's got a sub 3 ERA. It remains kind of a marvel that he can do that without a lot of swing and miss. He's not averaging a strikeout per inning, I don't think. That's rare in today's game for successful starters, but he has mixed his pitch mix well. He has, for the most part, limited the amount of walks he's given up. And there just haven't been a lot of hard hit balls against him. You know, you're asking for trouble somewhat in 2025 when you have as many balls put in play as he does. But if you can limit the hard hit nature of those, then it goes a lot easier for you. And there's more than one way to win, as he's demonstrating this season. And I would also caution, as I wrote over the weekend, it was a year ago that we were saying, wow, Tanner Houck has arrived as a number two. He was an all-star selection. We know how that played out. He did not pitch well the second half of last year. He did not uh, perform well in spring training or early on. And now, of course, the elbow injury and Tommy John and out probably through much of next year. So anything that we were thinking about what we could project for Tanner Houck goes out the window temporarily. Not suggesting that what we're seeing from Brayan Bello is some sort of an illusion and we need to see more, but we kind of do need to see more given what happens with young pitchers, and you want to see him be able to do that across multiple seasons.
Yep. And, if you look at the StatCast numbers, which people are obsessed with, there's a lot of blue when it comes to, expected ERA and expected batting average and whiff rate, in the 14th percentile and the K rate in the 21st percentile and all that stuff that matters a lot less to me than the 307 ERA. He's getting it done. I think one thing that you can talk about is the improved infield defense behind him. It's not perfect. We've seen that, obviously. But when you have that left side of Bregman and Story and that consistency every single day, that's going to be a big help against Bayo, and I think it has been.
Yeah, you're not holding your breath when a ball's put in play in the infield anymore. You're pretty certain that those two guys are going to make every play they should, and Bregman has the ability to make plays that most third basemen can't. I would say that Story's range is not great, but he remains very sure-handed. His instincts are fabulous, and as long as that ball is not deep in the hole, I know that he's made some nice jump throw plays there in the hole. He can throw on the run. Balls hit up the middle still seem to elude him a little bit. So again, the range factor isn't great, but the dependability factor is very high. If there is a ground ball to third with two outs, or a ground ball to short with two outs and a man on third, you're not worried about that run scoring. You know that Trevor Story is going to convert it into an out. When you've got some combination of Hamilton or Rafaela playing second, then you have above average defenders there. And Nathaniel Lowe, even though the numbers are not great this year, is superior to either Romy Gonzalez or Abraham Toro, who were manning that position not long ago. So you're right. They have reason to feel comfortable or at least far better about the infield defense and converting balls into outs than they have in a while. And when you have some guys who are not overpowering and not striking out 11 guys per 9 innings, that's important.
Yep. And, something that also, the outfield defense is so good when everybody's out where they should be, especially with Rafaela in center and Abreu in right, which these days you're not getting much of or any of because Abreu is out. Obviously, that plays into it too. I do think, like where they are right now, and they have been up and down for the last week. We talked about the struggles against Baltimore. Now won 4 out of 5, 3 out of 4 in the Bronx, and then a good win last night, powered by Duran and a great play by Steven Matz and Whitlock being electric and Chapman doing what he does. I do think when you look at this team and you look at concerns, it's pretty obvious. It is the rotation depth that takes. As we record this, we are not sure if Richard Fitz is going on the IL or not. I think we're both guessing that he probably will just because of how ugly it looked yesterday. On August 26th, that's kind of a concern. You don't think that is going to be a 15-day thing. Further depleted. So to me, I've been talking about how this kind of rotation group to me feels razor thin for a while. Another guy goes down. Criswell's out right now. So you have the big three of Crochet, Bayo, and Giolito. They removed Buehler from the rotation like we talked about was expected last week. And now it's kind of like, all right, Kyle Harrison, Payton Tolle, who's going to step up? And that's the major question facing this team right now.
Yeah, I think it's almost assured now that we see Peyton Tolle in some spot starts in the final 30 games. It's hard to imagine that they wouldn't need him. They're going to need reinforcements. Um, they don't have any off days coming up right in this next little while. They've got three more in Baltimore as we record this, followed by three in a row with Pittsburgh, and then three with Cleveland before an off day to travel out to Arizona and Sacramento. So their next off day is better than a week away. They can't paper over this. They're going to have to either in that back end spot, either do a bullpen game again or plug somebody in from Worcester. And, I thought it was telling that after scratching Harrison, they didn't use him last night. I
Hmm.
don't think there's been any official explanation. You wouldn't think there would be on the record because it's hard for them to speculate about roster moves that they didn't make. But something stopped them from doing that. They'll have an open roster spot now that they can probably fill with a bullpen arm for the next few days, but eventually they're going to need that fifth starter. And increasingly, it just seems like they're ready to turn Peyton Tolle loose and see what he can give them. And I think that's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, super aggressive from an organization that has slow played the prospects. Looking back, this team might have been a little bit better with Anthony on the opening day roster. We can do that second guessing after the season ends. They do slow play guys. They're not, the Angels or some of these teams that get desperate and hope that these reinforcements can come. Again, Tolle started this year at high A. He didn't throw a professional pitch before this season because the Red Sox don't do that with their pitching prospects. So the fact he's in the mix here is insane. I think it says a lot about how they feel the Kyle Harrison thing has gone in Worcester. I know he's young. I know there's a lot of talent. I know there's a lot of upside, but it's a little concerning that they have not been, even with a 3.70 ERA and better performances the last few weeks, ready to let him go. You saw Criswell
Yeah.
get that
Well,
start against Houston instead of him. You saw Brennan Bernardino get a couple starts instead of him. And you know what? I'm gonna go and um, find this because this is something that people haven't really discussed that was kind of telling and kind of interesting. Justin Willard in a conversation with Katie Morrison O'Day, who covers the Woo Sox for us. Justin Willard, pitching director for the Red Sox. Willard doesn't expect Harrison's stay in AAA to be a long one, alluding to him being, quote, down here a couple of weeks when he was acquired on June and arrived in Worcester around June 15th. That's, I
yep.
mean, that's,
We're better than 2 months into that now.
yeah. So something, whether it's, you know, developing the new pitch, the stuff they want to work on, something hasn't gone according to plan. I think that's pretty clear.
Right. And it does speak volumes that all signs point to them being more comfortable throwing a guy in his first professional season into the mix rather than a guy who's made what, 50 big league starts
Yep.
or 30
40
or
or something
40
like
big
that.
league starts
Yeah.
with the Giants. This is not Kyle Harrison making his major league debut. Yes, he was in AAA earlier before the trade. Yes, he's been
He was in the big leagues when he got traded.
right, right. And it does it does shine a light both on how much work they think Harrison still needs and how advanced Peyton Tolle is.
Right. And so that's a huge question mark. Um, you know, they remove Walker Buehler from the rotation because they couldn't have him start anymore. It doesn't mean someone was ready to step up and take it, as we saw last night with the way they set things up with the opener and Fitz. Like they did that because of Bueller and not because of someone, pushing or banging the door down there. So that's fascinating. And then that brings us to Dustin May, who people I think got a little high on him after two good outings, especially the one in Houston. I can't see them starting him in a playoff game. I don't think they can
Well,
do it.
but they don't need him to start a playoff game.
They need a fourth starter in a 7 game series.
Okay, you're presuming they're getting to the
I'm saying they
ALCS
might.
and things could change a great deal by then. Um, there are some other options that they could look at there. It would not be unprecedented for a team to use a bullpen game in the postseason. It's been done before.
Hmm.
Yeah, I would question whether they would trust May in one of those spots, but it's not anything they have to worry about in a wild card round or a division series. So we're quite a ways away from that. On the subject of pitching, though, I have a question for you. As someone, we'll pull the curtain back a little bit. We got our individual postseason or individual award voting assignments. I am voting for Rookie of the Year. You are voting for Cy Young Award. That's going to be a fascinating race between Tarek Skubal and Garrett Crochet. Here's my question. Will Aroldis Chapman get down ballot votes and finish in the top 10?
I mean, it's a great question. You know, you don't obviously see relievers in the mix, especially in the modern game, but he's pushing, and it's something that everybody's going to have to consider. He's been absolutely
And the guy's
ridiculously
got a
good.
what, a 106
Yep.
ERA right now. He has the potential if he continues on this roll. And obviously, we know that ERA fluctuates a great deal. One bad outing, and I mean like giving up 2 or 3 runs in an inning can make that jump because you're not dealing with a big inning total to begin with. But let's say that he stays on this roll here and goes into, late September with an ERA in the low, low ones with just a couple of blown saves and a batting average against of 100 something. How do you not give him some consideration? I don't mean you, I mean voters.
Right. No, he's been unbelievable, and I think the other piece of it is Whitlock has been just as good now for like a month or 6 weeks or 2 months. He looks like the 2021 version of himself. You have
Mhm.
those two guys locking down the eighth and ninth. You add Slayton to the mix. Wilson, hit the wall a little bit here recently. Matz has been pretty good. You maybe feel better about the fact that you don't have a fourth starter down the stretch and into October because you have those guys and you can stack up, some of them as long as Slayton comes back and he's himself and all that. Here's the looking forward question I have for you, something I brought up with Tony Maz yesterday. This is me already creating an issue and a problem and a conundrum for a month from now.
What a shock.
Exactly, huh?
What a shock.
Sorry, exactly a month from now. I believe. I believe the last day of the regular season is starts or the last series begins September 26th. So we are 1 month away from that. The Red Sox, as we record this, remain 5 games back of the Blue Jays. They've not been able to kind of have any headway there. They are in possession of the top American League wild card spot. Their lead is technically a half game. It really is 1.5 because they have that tiebreaker over the Yankees, as we know. They are a game clear of the Mariners, and they are 5 games clear of the Royals. So, look at just, saying it as it is. Unless one of these teams makes a huge, huge, huge run, or one of these teams collapses in a huge way, 4 games over the course of 40 or 35, whatever it is hard to make up for the Royals and the Rangers, or five and a
Yeah,
half, the
we're down
Guardians
to
6.
no team has more than 32 games left.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not a math show, Sean. The
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to introduce facts into the argument. You just go ahead and do your scaremongering wherever this is leading.
okay, so we're gonna say the Red Sox, the Yankees, and the Mariners should feel pretty good about the position they're in,
Mhm.
but they're all within a game of each other. So if you are the Boston Red Sox heading into that last weekend against Detroit, do you line up your pitching to try to claim home field advantage in the wild card series where you have been so good, as everyone knows, 41 and 25 at home, 31 and 35 on the road? Or do you do option B, which is do everything you can to line up Crochet and Bayo for Tuesday and Wednesday, no matter where you play?
Well, if you had really done your homework, you would have plotted out what those games are going to look like and where the rotation would be, which can be done if you wanted to do the work.
Well, it
Uh,
depends on the off days, which we don't know how they do that. But go ahead.
well, I think you have to do everything you can to play at home. This is a very different team at Fenway than they are on the road. I know that they're in the middle of a good road trip, taking 3 out of 4 in New York at Yankee Stadium. That's not easy. A win last night in Baltimore at Camden Yards, good for them. But as you noted, they're 4 games under 500, and they are dominant at home. The crowd is into it. They are a different team at Fenway. And so, within reason, and I'm not talking about having Garrett Crochet throw game 162 so that he's not available in the first two games of the wild card round, but within reason, you do everything you can to play at home.
Well, the schedule is tight. It's not the old, I I was in elementary school when they would go to Anaheim and play the division series every year, but it felt like what they had three days off or two or 3 days off before those series began.
Yeah, it used to be so if the season there was some years where they were ending the season in the middle of the week, but on traditional years where the season ended Sunday, one of the division series would start either on Tuesday or Wednesday. So it was you never had 3 days, 3 full days. The most you would get would be two.
Yeah, well, here you get one. You get one day, no matter what. There's no
Let's
tiebreakers.
let's factor into this too, as long as we're playing this game, that there's a pretty good chance those games are not going to mean anything for Detroit.
Hmm.
They are comfortably ahead. They're 11 games up now in the AL Central. They're not likely
And
to
they're
be
going to have a
challenged.
bye. I mean, they have a 5.5 game lead on the Astros slash whoever comes out of the West, the
Right, right.
Mariners.
Barring some real cratering on the part of the Tigers, they're probably going to go in as the number one seed. So those three games may not mean anything to them. And, they could be using bullpen games and making sure that Scooble and Jack Flaherty and all the other guys in their rotation are resting up. But then again, remember, they wouldn't play
Till
any
Friday, right?
sooner than Saturday. So they're going to have 5 days off. Do they want Scooble to have 8 or 9 days where he doesn't pitch? Do they limit him, let him make a cameo for 2 innings or 3 innings
Hmm.
in one of those, just treat it almost as a glorified side session or bullpen? There's a lot of factors at work here, but it would behoove the Red Sox chances to have Detroit kind of locked down, not only as the AL Central leader, but as the number one seed all the way through the American League playoffs. We expect they're going to be one of the top two and thus get a wild card bye, but are they going to be in a position where they can claim home field all the way through the ALCS? That would mean something to them, how they view it, and how much they want to push their guys in that final games 160, 61, and 162 remains to be seen.
Yeah, and I think, also interesting there is you get Toronto the 3 games before, like I just said, the gap has not closed. So you're 5 games back now. If you're 5 games back heading into that series, it's effectively over, right? The magic
Yeah, they
number
well, they have to really be within at worst
two.
three. I was going to say three.
Yeah.
You take two out of three, then you leave there behind two, and then you've got to sweep and hope they stumble.
What?
You're right. As we do the math, it really has to be two to make it significant.
So, but the point is,
Let's face it, picking up 3 games in the next 25 is not out of the question.
right. But I'm saying if they have it clinched, they could be shutting it down during that series against
Yep,
you as well. So you're facing, the two best teams in the American League late, but that might
with
not
nothing to
matter
play.
because, we'll see, it's not necessarily week 18 in the NFL, but we have seen this before. The greater point is if you have, you're guaranteed 2 games in this wild card round, Tuesday and Wednesday, to have Crochet available for game one, you could pitch him as late as what, Thursday? You get and so you hold him out of that Detroit series, or do you line him up for one of those games? Like it's going to be a difficult choice. I
Yep.
disagree with you on how I would handle it, and
Well, I sort of said mine with an asterisk, right?
yeah,
Like
no, I get it.
I'm not talking about taking him out of games 1 or 2, but if you can, get him even on a shortened start on the weekend on Friday, maybe, and still have him pitch game 2, then maybe you think about that if you're trying to get home field.
Yeah, well, I would rather have him pitch game one in Seattle than have him pitch game three at Fenway, or in Yankee Stadium, whatever. Like it just
Yeah. Well, there's no guarantee that you get a game 3.
right, and yeah. I mean, I'd rather have him in game one than almost any other scenario. That's no disrespect to Bayo. I still think I'd rather have
Of
Crochet out
course.
there. And at best of three, you know, you go down 1-0, your backs are against the wall immediately. So to me, it's all about lining him up. It's all about lining it up so you get Crochet and Bayo. That's tough with the issues we're talking about right now because, in those games against Detroit, what are you going to have? Maybe it's Tolle in a big spot. Maybe it's Kyle Harrison, most likely Dustin May, and some of these guys we're talking about. And that's every team's depleted at this point, but it's a tough place to be. I think that's the biggest story we're looking at down the stretch. It's not that MassLive can project that the Boston Red Sox will be in the playoffs, but it's a pretty safe bet at this point. So now it's for the first time in a long time, not about trying to get in September, but trying to line things up and see how it goes from there.
Yeah, a lot can happen between now and then, obviously, and it'd be a nice problem to have to be worried about. Well, you're already in, but now there's some seeding at stake, and who do we want available for our starting pitching plans? If the Red Sox face that with a week to go, it'll be a good month of September for them.
Right. And so that is, I think, the biggest question down the stretch, the pitching depth, as we talked about. The bullpen looks good. The offense, it is what it is. There's guys that need to step up. Duran showed he could last night. Abreu is going to be back next week. Snyder could be back as soon as this week. They are going to be relatively healthy heading into September, which is important. Obviously, there's guys that are not coming back from the Myers of the world and some of these other pieces. Um, we talked about this the other night, but as we're not going to do another pod before September 1st, which is the day that Red Sox rosters and MLB rosters will expand to 28, and Bill Belichick debuts on September 1st as well. Um, do you think Christian Campbell gets one of those spots?
That's a tough one. I think that his versatility, his improved plate appearances, all suggest that yes, he would be the position player. We're assuming, of course, that it'll be one position player and one pitcher added. For that position player, in terms of versatility and what he can offer, it makes the most sense. And yet, it seems like they might be leaning away from that. I don't know who would make more sense, but I kind of have the feeling they're looking at, no, let's leave him be. Maybe when the season is done at Worcester, he comes up for the final 2 weeks and you move people up and down. I don't see it happening on September 1st.
And Grissom's hurt, and so the current roster has Nate Eaton and the password on it. As we record this, that could legitimately change at any time because Snyder's going to be back. One of those guys will go down. Abreu, maybe Abreu is that guy, and they keep eating up. I mean, I guess
Yeah,
I
he
don't think
has the versatility to back up at third where they don't have a lot of options anymore, where you don't have Marcelo Meyer as a guy to step in if you want to get Bregman off his feet or give him a day.
so. You're
They,
looking at, I mean, honestly, Eaton, Sogard, and Campbell as your three options, and that would not be a
yeah,
great end of
I
the
would
season.
see, framed that way and taking into account that they're going to obviously activate at some point both Abreu and Ref Snyder. I would say they would pick Eaton over Campbell right now.
That's wild. I mean, just to think about in a vacuum, right?
Yep. Think
So,
back to April 10th and the chances of that happening.
so 5 days before that, Sean McAdam and Chris Smith will have you covered on the homestand. Uh, I'll find out what happens when I get to Phoenix, and we will have another Fenway rundown later in the week. Uh, Very different quarter century teams, some up for debate. Should be fun. Thanks for listening as always.